Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. Today's episode is a coaching episode. I coach Kalista. Kalista is a neurodivergent mom of a toddler. And her toddler is, one of those more intense kids that we often talk about on the podcast and in our community. And Kalista was feeling overwhelmed. When she came to me, her toddler often has big feelings. Kalista works full time, and she was just feeling overwhelmed by the demands of being a parent to one of those sensitive and intense children. And I'm sure that many of you on the call can relate. So we talked about her situation and we came up with some strategies, and be sure to stick around till the end where we hear how those strategies went for her. I think this is going to be a helpful session for a lot of you who do tend to feel overwhelmed. A, you'll feel not alone, and B, I think you'll get some strategies that can help you as well. If you think that parent coaching is something that you might like to explore, please head over to my website, sararosensweet.com. You can go to sararosensweet.com/parenting-coach. I know it's not the greatest URL. You can also find it just in the menu at sararosensweet.com. And there you can find out all the details for working with me or Corey or Stoney. And you can also sign up for a free short consult on my website to see how we can help you. I would love to hear how you like this episode. If you want to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, that always helps us reach more parents and parents who could use the support. So enjoy the episode, and I hope that this resonates for you and you found it helpful as Kalista did. Hi, Kalista. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Sarah.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and your family.
Yeah, my name's Kalista. I have a 15-month-old daughter named Olivia. My husband and I often call her OJ for Olivia James. Honestly, we had a really tough first 6 months or so of her life. She was a highly sensitive baby, really struggled with sleep. And so, diving into the world of highly sensitive babies and toddlers and just learning about the nervous system and how I can best support her led me to discover more of my own sensitivities. And I was recently diagnosed as autistic.
All right. And how old is Olivia?
15 months.
15 months. Okay. And is your husband, as far as you know, neurotypical?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. I'm always curious in the mixed neurotype relationships, because that also brings its own challenges too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's new for all of us.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that you've discovered that about yourself. I think I know some people close to me who found out that they're autistic much later in life. And I think it would have been helpful for them to know that earlier in their lives, because it's just so helpful to know about yourself and to know about how your brain works. So congratulations on finding that out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so how can I support you today?
Yeah, so I think, as part of my own sensitivities, I'm worried that my tendency to be overwhelmed with noises and, just things that happen on a day-to-day with any toddler, I'm sure, but especially a highly sensitive toddler. I'm just worried that it's preventing me from enjoying her as much as I can, enjoying this experience of parenthood. And I don't want to inadvertently send the message to her that anything that she's doing is too much. And, I know that it's my own nervous system reacting to the noises and the sounds, and just day-to-day life that's a lot right now, but it's sort of just like, I want to be like best prepared to make sure that like I'm not sending the wrong message to her type of thing.
I love that. That's so great that you have that awareness. So when you do feel that sense of overwhelm, like how does it show up for you and what kinds of situations?
I think so lately she's been like, kind of doing a lot of like whining and tugging and wanting to be held a lot after daycare. And I usually feel like, I can support that and I'm happy to like hold her, happy to like tend to her. But it's like when we have such a short period of time after work until, bath time, bedtime, all the craziness of the evenings, I feel like, it's like her whining sometimes I realize like, oh, I'm getting really frustrated in this moment. And it's almost like I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like I feel
Mm-hmm.
nothing's working. Like
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that's going to work is just to sit there and hold her and
Mm-hmm.
stop everything else I'm doing. And a lot of times it just doesn't feel like that's an option. So it's either like listen to her whine and be upset and not know exactly how to help her, or just like, completely tend to her and not have, dinner or any of the other things go on.
What are the things that, okay, well, the first, there's so much that you just said that I
Yeah.
want to unpack. But before we started recording, you shared that you work part-time and that she's in daycare. Are you able to use, like, are there a few hours that you don't have, that she's in daycare that you're not working that you can use to really kind of fill your own cup? I mean,
No,
I'm
sorry.
thinking preventively.
Yeah, no, so I work full time. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
that I sometimes telework from home or sometimes I'm
Okay.
in
I
the
get it.
office. Yeah, but I have a full-time job.
So you don't have, there's not like any time that you're not working that you don't have her that you could fill your cup.
Yeah, there's really not. I mean, my husband is amazing and really supportive, and so like I think we've talked about like maybe some strategies where we can like tag team better,
Mm-hmm.
but right now we're not doing a great job of that. It's almost like we're both like hands on right now, and
Right. So when
you're
when
kind of
you pick
yeah.
her up and you're like directly transitioning from work to parenting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's tough. Do you have any wiggle room where you could take like, 15 minutes to do like a reset, some, I don't know, what comes to mind is some like meditation or breathing or exercise or something where you could kind of do a little bit of a nervous system reset?
Yeah, I think there's definitely on like my work from home days, that's for sure. It's more flexible. And then even if not, like I still have the commute, which is not the best for like calming, but like at least it's space.
Mhm. Yeah, because I'm thinking whenever, like, so when we're talking about the nervous system, whenever you have, like, I don't know, I want to say drain or strain on your resources, it, I wish the listeners could see me because I'm like, hold up my hands. Like, if you've got like a baseline of calm, right? Like where your nervous system isn't being stressed and you can take a lot more before you start to feel dysregulated. But if you're coming into a situation of parenting where you're already like kind of stressed from the day and overstimulated, then it doesn't take much for you to get into that dysregulated place. So I guess that's what I was getting at is like if there's any sort of things that anything, are you aware of what is helpful for you to calm your nervous system?
It's hard because I think with the noises, like it's almost just like I need to like have like just less noise and it helps like immediately if there's less noise. But
Have you,
yeah.
maybe this is really obvious, but have you tried wearing earplugs when you're with Olivia?
I have them, but I haven't really used them like in being with her. Like
I would absolutely try that. You can, there's a brand that a lot of parents like. In fact, I looked these up the other day and they have different, they're called Loop. I'm not associated with them. I should actually get them to sponsor the podcast.
yeah.
I recommend them so much, but they're very unobtrusive looking. And, if she were older, I would say explain it to her and tell her that you can still hear her, but she might not even notice at 15 months. She probably wouldn't even notice or have an awareness that they're earplugs or what they do. So I think you could just wear them. But what they do is they just really reduce the decibel level. And what I was going to say when I looked them up, one of the models say for parenting. Like they're actually like it's like wear these for parenting.
Nice.
And it doesn't mean that you're blocking her out or that you can't hear her, that you're not going to be responsive to her, but it just lowers the decibel level a little bit. So I would absolutely try that and see if that helps.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give it a try.
Yeah. And then the other thing I was going to say was you said, if you could drop everything else and just hold her and be with her, she wouldn't be as whiny and clingy. Is that possible? Like, what is it that you're trying to do? I mean, could you reduce things so much, or as you said, tag team with your husband better so that you could dedicate more of those hours to just being with her and having her be less whiny?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times that's what I end up just doing because it feels like the easiest solution and the thing that makes, both of us like the most happy in the moment. But it's like, so I do like the pickup in the afternoon, and I'm usually with her for like an hour or two before my husband gets home. And so then, like, by the time he's home, it's like we have an hour or two before bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just more like sometimes it's like drop everything and not, make dinner or eat dinner or, like clean up or whatever. It just feels like it's like, I don't know. In the moment, it sounds kind of silly saying it right now, but I guess in the moment, it just kind of feels like, oh, like I can't, like even like do like a simple thing like eat. Like I can't
Well,
tend to my
I
own self. You know
I
what I
would
mean?
never say you shouldn't eat, but I mean, it seems like, and maybe I'm out of touch with having a 15-month-old, but it seems like you could eat and have her sit on your lap at the same time, or she's got to eat too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy. I think it's like just I don't know. I guess it's just like it just feels so overwhelming like when it feels like nothing's working or to like, get her to stop whining or whatever. And sometimes she's a lot, she's super interested in joining us for dinner and like going along with the tasks, and a lot of times she's just not, and she just wants to be held or, like kind of just needs that connection time, which I get. She's been away
Yeah.
from us all day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, another thing, do you have a carrier where she could, be on your back? Or, I mean, I remember my kids, I would wear them a lot on my back at that age. And that would satisfy, I don't know about OJ, but that would satisfy their connection needs just to be on me.
Yeah, I have a carrier, and I usually pick her up in the carrier. It's the easiest thing. But I don't know, lately she hasn't been wanting to be in it like as much. She's just, like she's walking. She's super busy, like
Right.
little toddler now.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I guess it sounds like the contrast is maybe not. I was sort of getting, when we first started talking, I was sort of thinking that it was, you're feeling pulled between, dinner and making dinner or doing cleaning up or whatever, and her, but maybe you're just overstimulated in general and nothing. I'm getting the impression maybe it's not one thing or the other, but it's just all of the things.
Yeah, it's probably that on a lot of days, just the overwhelm
Mm-hmm.
in general in the evenings.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be curious to see after we talk if you do use the earplugs, if that helps, if you think a lot of it is the noise. But what do you think you could do with her? If there's anything you could do with her that would soothe your nervous system and meet her connection needs? Like things you
Yeah.
like to do together. Like I'm just going to brainstorm and say something like take a bath together, or like, is there anything that you think would be soothing for you and meet her connection needs at the same time?
Yeah. I
Or
think
be
right now,
outside or go for a
yeah,
walk or
that's what I was gonna say, like, it's so hard because it's cold and gross outside right now, but that was a really good outlet to go outside, and so, you know, I guess I need to be more creative about some things that we can do, and maybe just creating a better tag team with my husband so that I can just be more connected to her after,
Mhm.
whenever I first pick her up from daycare.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things. There's like your husband. So you said you're home for an hour or two before he gets home.
Mhm.
And then there's an hour or two with that you're all three are home before she has to go to bed. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay. So it seems like somewhere in that time where he gets home, I wonder if you could get some time on your own, even like 15 minutes, where you just go outside. I mean, I know you said it's yucky outside, but go out for like a quick walk
Mhm.
or, do something where you can even just get a break within that 4 hour window or, 3 to 4 hour window before you're putting her to bed. That might be something that would be helpful, is to just try to get a little bit of a break. And
Like a reset.
also, I mean, when, when you come home, are there simple things that you could make to eat that wouldn't feel like you're, stressed trying to parent a 15-month-old and cook something at the same time? I'm just thinking simplify in general.
Yeah, I know. That's probably my husband's much better at like meal planning and things, and I don't do that as well, but I think it would be better, if it wasn't something that I had to like prepare, and it was already ready. That could probably help.
Hmm. So like some like Trader Joe's prepared food or something,
Yeah.
or even just like toast and cheese or scrambled eggs, or I mean, you're in a window, right? Where like you're in this window of time as a parent where you have like a high needs baby who really does need you a lot. And as she continues to get older, it'll be a little bit less and less hands-on active parenting. But whatever you can do in this window to make all of the other things more simple and less stressful for yourself would really help.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we've been like in this survival mode almost like we were like not sleeping, not, taking care of ourselves really. And now we're like coming out of that and we're like getting this chance to enjoy her and like being, this fun little kid that she is now. And it's great. And it's also like we're starting to see like, oh, there's still things that we're doing that's like in survival mode,
Hmm.
like we want to kind of like with food and things like come out of that and like be make our normal dinners again or like things like that. So I think that might be part of it is like we we were in this just survival get through the day sort of mode, and now that we've kind of come out of that and she's older and she's getting, she's still so young but she's getting
Hmm.
a little older. I think that's part of the struggle with the balance that we're having right now.
Like you feel like, if I understand you correctly, you feel like you're wanting to do more things that you haven't been able to do for the past year and 3 months. But maybe that's a little too soon.
Yeah.
Maybe you're more in survival mode than you realized still.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
not. Maybe it's a shift from survival mode to just like simple life mode. You're not in survival mode anymore, but you still have to carry over some of the simplification things that you did to be in survival mode, just because you have a high needs little one and you're also a highly sensitive person yourself. So maybe you're trying to do too many things from your old life that are not working for you right now.
Mhm. Yeah, that could be it. That could be it.
I mean, one thing I say a lot in coaching is sometimes the solution is worse than the problem. You have to decide if, okay, let's just say it's like making something nice to eat versus like having toast and cheese. Like, let's say like that's the choice. Maybe having OJ whining and clinging on you and making something nice to eat is better than having her not whining and eating toast and cheese. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't say which one of those things is better. Like, there's not a right answer. It's for you to decide, is like the problem worse or the solution worse? And in this case, the problem being that she wants you and needs you. I'm not that it's a problem, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
issue that
Mm.
she wants you and needs you, but you would like to be able to have a little bit more, let's just call it freedom, to like be more
Mhm.
creative with your food choices or whatever it is. But to get that, you have to tolerate a lot of like whining and clinginess. So really, it's just up to you to decide which one you'd rather have to deal with.
Yeah. No, that I appreciate that. I mean, making that choice is like, yeah, maybe just consciously making that choice. Like, okay, what is it today that is more important to me, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of
exactly.
sense.
Yeah, and I think that also there's power in choice, right? Like if I'm consciously making this choice because I really want like a beautiful salad that's going to take, I mean, I'm just making that. I don't know what your
Yeah.
nice food is, but like a beautiful salad that's going to take me half an hour to like chop all the things and make the dressing. I really, really want that. And so it's worth it to me to deal with like a whiny toddler holding on to my leg the whole time. It's worth it to me to do that. Then it sort of makes I think it makes the whining a little bit easier to tolerate because it's a choice that you're making.
Mhm. No, that's a really good point. I like that framing.
Hmm. And then some days you might say like, yeah, it's not worth it to me. Like she really just needs me, and I'll have toast and cheese or, a scrambled egg or whatever, and just sit and play with her and hold her and whatever it is that she wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good suggestion. Thank you.
Hmm. The other thing that I was thinking about is, in peaceful parenting, we have the concept of the emotional backpack. And, I just wonder too, like how much of the whining, like, so we've been talking about, just that's the way it is. But also maybe she's coming home with a full emotional backpack and she is whiny because of that full emotional backpack. For anyone who's new to the concept, it's basically it's a metaphor for our body that my mentor, Dr. Laura Markham, came up with, where when we are experiencing anything, difficult emotions, tensions, stresses throughout the day, if we don't process those in the moment, we stuff them in our emotional backpack or hold on to them in our body until we feel more safe and that they come bubbling back up to the surface, right? So any kid at school or daycare, even if any sensitive kid, even if they have a good day, they're going to have, tensions and stresses and big feelings from the day, that they come home and they've got this full emotional backpack. Their body has these things that they've been holding on to, which can make a kid whiny, more prone to meltdowns, a little bit more demanding. And so maybe spending some time consciously emptying her emotional backpack when you get home might make her a little bit more, I'll just say, independent, like able to kind of play on her own while you make that beautiful salad or whatever. And it also is going to fill up, if you so to empty her emotional backpack, I'm just going to back up a little bit. Tears and laughter are the best ways for kids to empty their emotional backpack. And so say you spend 15 minutes playing with her, roughhousing, getting her laughing, doing that, that kind of thing, like getting just down on the carpet with her and playing with her. You're also going to be connecting, right? At the same time as you're emptying her emotional backpack by getting her laughing. So she might also, when you fill that cup and you kind of reconnect with her after the day apart, that might make her a little less clingy and whiny also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like I've tried, because I love listening to your podcast and I love the emotional backpack concept. It makes a lot of sense to me. I guess I wonder like how much of it, like maybe I need to do some reflecting on like, you know, what actually in the moment, what's happening, because I'm not sure thinking about it now, but I guess what I'm thinking right now is like, when she's having these times of like being extra whiny, it's almost like I feel like I've done that connection period.
Okay.
And I feel like I've like, tried a couple of things, and then it's like maybe that's what's contributing to me being overwhelmed. It's like, oh, it didn't work, or it's not enough, or she needs like, not 15 minutes but 45 minutes or
Right.
whatever it is. And then it's like by the time my husband gets home and 2 hours later, it's like become at that point like overwhelming or something. And little things that I think might be also contributing is like these like sort of, I don't know, it's like these expectations that maybe I have of myself. Like I am worried, like, oh, one thing that always makes her happy, two things that always make her happy, that's like I feel like I shouldn't be doing. Giving her
Okay.
a bottle and giving her passy, right? And
Okay.
it's like I feel like almost bad about it, like it's like a cop out, like ugh, I need to be like helping her, drink out of a cup, and I need to help her like, not rely on her passy as much, and like she's in this stage of like learning how to talk and form those like first words, and having a passy in her mouth all evening is not helping that. It's like these things I think is like in my head. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, oh, like I can't do that. Or if I do that, then I'm like taking the easy way out. I think that's also kind of what's
Right.
contributing,
Yeah.
because I'm like, oh, I'm doing the thing that's the easy thing. And I know it's not.
Okay, so two things. Let's unpack that. We'll get back to the bottle and the passy in a second. But the first thing is that it sounds like you have a lot of expectations that if you were doing the right things, the quote right things, she wouldn't be whiny and clingy at the end of the day. Like
I
if you
think it's
did
more.
45 minutes of connecting instead of 15 or whatever, because that's great information that you already are doing, that connecting and roughhousing and laughter and backpack emptying. And maybe she's just tired at the end of the day because she's 15 months old and it's getting close to bedtime. And maybe
Mhm,
there's just nothing that you are going to be able to do about it. And we're just going to have to shift to, instead of helping her to not whine and be clingy, to just like welcoming her feelings.
mhm. Yeah.
I don't know if you, I mean, when my kids were little, it was a long time ago now. I followed what was called, was the fairly new thing of attachment parenting. And I really took away from that. And I partly was maybe my misinterpretation, but also I really do think that the impression was given that if you do all the right things, you would have a baby who never cries. And that is so not true. Like, I wish
Mhm.
someone had told me, you can have a baby where all their needs are met. They are, fed and dry and all of the things, and they still are going to cry or whine or whatever, because that's how humans offload stress. And it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. And the goal is not to have a baby that never cries, right? The goal is to welcome the feelings and have them cry with you or whine with you, and let them, try to stay calm yourself and be compassionate when they're having those hard feelings.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's I think I'm hypersensitive to that almost because 'cause I'm like, I don't want my, like, reaction to come across as, like, I'm not welcoming her feelings, right? Like,
Hmm.
I am hypersensitive to that, and I feel like that's almost like what the struggle is, like, I know that I'm getting overwhelmed in the moment, or I know it's, like, becoming too much for me, or the whining is getting to me or something, and I don't want it to come across as, like, she can't have this feel it's not acceptable for her to have this feeling
Right.
type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because of your nervous system, or sort
Yeah.
of coming back to I'm getting a better picture here. We're coming back to the first things you talked about. You don't want your nervous system reaction to make her feel like, like she's, that you're not welcoming her feelings. So, have you experimented in the moment with different things that you can do? I mean, I keep coming back to the earplugs thing. I think that will help.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
but are there things that you do that do calm your nervous system in the moment, like deep breathing or hand to heart, or giving yourself a hug, just that pressure, giving yourself that pressure to help calm yourself when she is having a moment?
Yeah, I think too you know, usually what helps is just, like, really just, like, being there with her and thinking from her perspective almost helps me because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, she is, like, going through something. I have to be there for her at this time,"
Mhm.
like, it just kinda just, like, put my agenda for my own things, whatever I was doing in that moment, whatever I thought I was gonna do this evening, like, away put that away and just be like, "Okay, this is, I'm what is the feeling that I can support her in right now, or the issue that she's having, how can I support her through it?" I mean, that almost it's it helps me in the moment to be there for her.
Right. So to work on the empathy and the, like, trying to see it from her perspective. So you're
Yeah.
talking about a mindset shift, basically,
Mm.
instead of thinking, "Oh, I didn't get to do the things that I thought I was going to do tonight." You're thinking, "Okay, this is," and again, it comes down to the choice thing. You're making a choice to put her needs ahead of yours in that moment, and
Yeah.
that sounds like that helps you.
Mhm. Yeah, it helps me, I think, just, like, get out of my own head instead of being like, "Oh, I can never make food. I can never
Yeah.
do anything myself. I can never,"
Yeah. I have a client that we worked on this a lot, and she was talking about the bedtime routine and how kind of onerous it was. Her kid's a little older than yours, like preschool age. And, the teeth brushing in the bath and all of the things, and feeling very much the same as you, kind of burnt out at the end of the day and wanting to just go to bed herself. And I said to her, "You don't have to do any of that." And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to brush his teeth. You don't have to read him stories. You don't have to give him a bath. Like, you really don't. You don't have to do any of that. You're doing it because you want to do it, because it's important to you to do these things, right?" And, I mean, I'm not saying that she really should just, like, pick him up from daycare and dump him in the bed, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you don't have to do any of the stuff that
all
you're
the
doing.
things. Mhm.
You're doing it because you're choosing to do it, because it's important to you, right? Because you wanna be that kind of parent, because you wanna have the time connecting with your daughter, because you want to make her feel like all her feelings are okay. Like, I wonder if that's something you could add to it, as well as trying to see it from her perspective. Like, I don't have to do any of these things. I could put her in front of the TV, ignore her. I could do, whatever, and do whatever I want for the evening, but I'm choosing to do it in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, this is the kind of parent I wanna show up as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
nobody's making you do that. It's something that you want to do because it's important to you.
Mhm.
And you might not choose to do it every day. And some days you might put her in front of the TV because you've just like, whatever that's how you're going to make it through the night. And I'm not saying I'm not attaching judgment to it, but I'm just saying like, if you have a level of, responsive parenting that you are aiming for yourself, that's because you're choosing to do it, not because you have to
Right.
do it.
Yeah. No, it's a good mindset shift. Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
And I think that can give us, like, in those hard moments, knowing that we're doing this out of our own free will can make it feel a lot better, even when it's hard.
Mhm. Yeah. That's a really good point.
Yeah. It's hard though, because you've got your own nervous system to contend with. So, there's the physical, and then there's the mindset stuff that we're talking about. So I feel like I haven't been super helpful about the physical except for the earplugs, but maybe you could brainstorm between now and the next time we talk about any physical things that you can do that help you in the moment to feel a little bit more calm. I found this really great article the other day. We were talking in the membership and office hours one day about different ways that you can, when you have a nervous system that tends to go to dysregulation pretty easily, we were talking about different ways that a person can find regulation. And I found this great article, which we'll link to in the show notes and I'll send to you. But it was something like 47 ways to calm your nervous system. And so maybe you could take a look at that and see if there's anything that resonates for you that might help you in the moment. One thing I know in the summit that I did, oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on the name of my summit. What was the name of my summit? Anyhow, it was the parenting summit that I did. One of our guests, Afshan Tafler, who talked about dysregulation in the nervous system, she said put an ice pack on I think she said on your neck, that can also really help you get back to calm. So I mean, that's something that you could try too.
Yeah. Yeah. I should explore some of those things. I feel like I'm I'm also like in this new phase, right? I'm becoming more and more aware of exactly what it is that sort of triggers me,
Mm-hmm.
or makes, it gets me to that place of overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's helpful to know, but I think I need to explore more like tactics of how
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'll send you that article and you can look at it and see if there's anything that you can try. The other thing that I just wanted to say is that there's nothing wrong with the response that you're having. Like, we are designed to so if our child is in fight, flight, or freeze, and whining is like mild dysregulation, right? It's like a
Mhm.
kid who can't quite get to the tears. They're upset, but they're not like full blown meltdown mode, right? It's like the beginning, it's like early dysregulation. Like in the zones of regulation, it would be the orange or yellow zone, I guess, right? So you've got green, which is calm, connected, engaged, red, which is fully dysregulated, and yellow, which is starting to move towards the red zone. And whining is like that yellow zone, right? She's not fully dysregulated, but she's starting to get there. As a parent, your nervous system is designed to go into activated mode when your child's dysregulated, when they're activated, because our nervous systems think, oh, my child's upset because there's a threat, right? Like, my child's
Yeah.
upset because there's a threat. So I have to motivate to protect my child from the threat. Our nervous systems can't tell the difference between perceived threat and real threat. So when OJ gets upset and is whining because she wants, oh, we have to get back to the bottle and the passy thing too.
Mm.
And she's getting, she wants you to pay attention to her instead of making a salad. That is registering as a threat to her nervous system, which registers as a threat to your nervous system. So your nervous system is working exactly the way it was intended to work. So it's not like you're having some wrong reaction by getting dysregulated. It's exactly what's supposed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to remember. It's good to remember. And
Yeah.
I need to try some more like tactics of, telling myself that this isn't, how to bring myself back down.
Right. So this, you can tell yourself, like, my nervous system is reacting as if this was a threat. You can, get your thinking brain to talk to your nervous system. I can
Yeah.
handle this. It's okay if she's whiny, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so your question about the soother, in Canada we call them soothers. Question about the soother and the bottle. I agree that you don't want her to have the soother in her mouth all night because of interfering with talking and all of that, but also maybe you could find, a compromise for yourself, that it's okay if she has it for a little while you're making that salad. Why do you feel like she shouldn't have it at all?
No, I just think she has it like too much,
Hmm.
so I feel like guilty like using it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can see both sides of it, because there is a level of, babies or toddlers who want either breastfeeding or a soother or a bottle, because it helps them to keep those feelings in their backpack, right? And that we should really make sure they can laugh and cry and empty the emotional backpack. And also, it is soothing. And there's like, I guess you are the one who's with her. You're going to have to decide, is this something that's like soothing for her nervous system and it's okay to let her have it? Or is she using it to avoid the uncomfortable feelings? And there's going to be a scale where at the far end, it's like 100% soothing. And at the other end, it's like 100% numbing. But there is middle there where it's going to be soothing and she's not using it to numb out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Like thinking if she's using it to like keep her emotions like at bay or not. Yeah.
I did when my kids were little, because they would definitely go for like wanting to breastfeed when they were like sad or hurt or whatever. And I would always just try to delay it a little bit. Like I'd say, like, you can have it in a few minutes. There might be some tears that need to come out first, and just try to delay it a little bit so that I wasn't withholding it, but I was trying to see if I could get some feelings to come out a little bit first.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. One other thing I wanted to ask you is like we've largely been like, most of our space is like yes space, but there's just like a couple of things that now she's like sort of like exploring, and I don't think we've hit the right saying no sort of tactic. If she's like pulling on a cord or like with the dog, she's really really aggressive with the dog sometimes, and I think I don't have the exact right, like, I don't know exactly how to respond to that, but that clicked in my head because that will get her really upset really quick if we tell her no, or remove her from a situation like that.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I mean, it's good. That's a good way to empty your backpack.
Yeah.
Well, sensitive kids often have big feelings when sensitive kids are very easily shame prone when they're corrected. So you want to get in the habit of always leading with empathy. You've probably heard me talk about this before, of like, oh my goodness, I know you want to play with the doggy. At the same time, she doesn't like that. And we're going to move you over here. So always leading with, why you understand why she's doing what she's doing, because it's fun, or she wants to see what happens when she does that, or whatever.
Mhm.
So basically, that leading with that acknowledgement of her point of view or empathizing lets her know, even though I'm going to move you, I still think you're a good person. Or even though I'm going to tell you not to pull on that plug, I still think you're a good person. So that's just a good habit to get into with a sensitive kid. And there's also just no way around it, that sometimes sensitive kids are going to be upset when you have to, move them away from the dog or tell them not to pull the plug or whatever. And it's okay.
Yeah.
If you're pretty regulated and not, saying it in a really angry or scolding way, and they're still upset, that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah. It's just something it's like the boundary that we have to hold
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. And it's okay if kids are upset about limits that we have to set sometimes.
Mhm.
We always want to think about, is this a limit that we do need to set? And if the answer is yes, and we can set it early enough so that we're regulated. And with a toddler, you can't set a limit with your words most of the time. Like, you have
Yeah.
to actually do something, right? Like, they're not going to respond most of the time. They're not going to respond to stop pulling the dog's tail or whatever. You have to actually do something to help them. You have to be their impulse control, right? Because they don't have any impulse control at this age. And if they're upset, that's okay.
Yeah. Like you said, it's helping the emotional backpack.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can be there to comfort and soothe and empathize. Like, you really didn't want me to move you, or you really wanted to pull on that plug. I hear you, whatever.
Just let her express her feeling about
Yeah.
it.
And then working on yourself, like, oh, it's okay if she cries. It doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong. She has feelings that she needs to process. because I think there is that, just going back to what I said about how I felt when my kids were little, I always felt like I must be doing something wrong if they're crying.
Yeah. And I think it's a really tough balance of like letting them feel their feeling, and also like at what point should I try and help her move through it? Like it's hard to know, like she's really upset about something. I feel like I could help her, with her passy, or with holding her, or
Mm-hmm.
with, whatever, or what point should I intervene, and what point should I just let her feel her feeling on her own,
Yeah. Well, I
kind of a
think
hard
I think
balance.
those are two very different things, holding her or giving her passy. I think those are two
Mhm.
very different things. I think holding her is probably not going to make her stop having the feelings. Giving her the passy might. And maybe there are times where you have the bandwidth to just hold her and let her cry, and other times where you don't and you should give her the passy, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We'll have lots of opportunities for when we have a sensitive child. We have lots of opportunities to help them with their feelings, to help them empty their backpack. It's not like if quote, like miss one, that's your last chance and she's just going to be stuffing her feelings for the rest of her life. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like you have to think in terms
Yeah.
of like, over the course of a day or a week or a month. And there are some days where you're just going to have more bandwidth and you're going to be able to be there for her more easily, and other days where you're not. And it's going to be like, here, have a cookie, or here, have your passy or whatever, and stop crying because I really don't have the bandwidth right now. And then you just make a note. I've got to take care of myself so that I do have the bandwidth for next time, or, what, just give yourself a break that you can't be on 100% of the time.
Yeah. Hard to remember, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're maybe a little bit of a perfectionist about this
Definitely.
parenting thing, and kids don't need a perfect parent. There's that, I think it was Winnicott from the 50s talked about the good, what
Good
kids say
enough.
is the good enough mother. Yeah. You know that already. So the good enough parent is what we're going for here.
Yeah. It's really hard to remember.
Yeah. So I think that he talked about, I think it was him who talked about 30, that, around 30% of the time we're going to be able to meet our child's needs successfully. 30% of the time we're not going to be able to meet their needs or figure out what they are. Or no, this is what it is. I think 30% of the time we meet their needs successfully. 30% of the time we'll miss the
Try.
cues. And
Yeah.
30% of the time we'll try but fail to meet their needs, right?
Yeah.
And that's the good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard to remember, but
And if you met every need that she had, she would never develop any resilience.
yes, that's a good reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got a lot to think about and work on for the next couple of weeks. We'll check in about 3 weeks and see how it's all gone. And I think I don't know. I feel like there's a lot that you can work on, hopefully, from this talk that we've had.
Yeah. No, I think so. It's been really helpful. Thank you so much.
Good. Okay. So I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Hi, Kalista. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hi. Thanks, Sarah, for having me.
Yeah, so it's been almost 4 weeks since we talked last time. So give us an update. How have things been?
Yeah, I think in general, I've felt better the last few weeks because I feel more like I can sort of like I can handle it. The overwhelm isn't taking over as much as it was before, just with like the mindset shifts and things.
Okay, so what do you think has made the difference? I mean, you mentioned mindset. So what do you think you changed that's made it easier to not feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, well, there's some practical things that we talked about which I think have helped, like the moving into like the simple life mode you said instead of the survival mode,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is helpful. And it's not like I have to make dinner every single night or I have to make dinner no nights. I've been like maybe once a week,
Mm-hmm.
but it's felt better to be like, okay, today I can have cereal and feel fine about it because it hasn't been 4 months since I made a nice dinner.
Right.
It was last week, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So it's felt better in that way. And then like you suggested baby wearing, which I always do when we're out, but not really at home anymore. I've tried it like to keep her in the carrier when we come home, just for a couple minutes, or even just a short amount of time to get a couple things done, when that's been helpful.
Good.
And then I think more of just like the actual mindset things. The perfectionist thing is still really tough, but I think so. Like yesterday, walking home, OJ I think had maybe her most emotional sort of big feelings moment. It was like really a meltdown, I think, on the walk home, like totally crying and screaming and like scratching my face and things. And instead of, I think, how I would have reacted before, being like, I don't know what to do, nothing's working, I'm gonna have to like give in to the tactics that I don't want to do. I was just like, she's really dysregulated right now. She needs to feel calm and do something that's regulating for her. So it's perfectly fine that I give her a bottle. And I
Good.
felt like kind of better about it. Instead of being like, ugh, I'm giving in and I don't know the right thing to do.
Well, it sounds like you did know the right thing to do,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
help her with something that regulates her.
Yeah. Yeah. It just kind of, I think, I don't know. It's hard to get out of the mindset of feeling like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. But
Mm-hmm.
in that moment, because it was like such a big reaction and I knew that like she needed help, it was kind of easier to see. So it's hard to
Good.
make the shift, but it's helping.
Yeah, good. And you know what? Perfectionism is not anything that goes away overnight.
Right.
It's a constant work in progress. And I've had my own working on my own perfectionism, and I've found self-compassion just to be the most helpful tool for that, even though I made this mistake, or even though, it didn't come out how I wanted or whatever, I'm still worthy and lovable. And that just feels so uncomfortable when you first start doing it, but the more you do it, and the easier it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard. But I guess, on moment to moment, day to day is how we make the change. So
Yeah, for
right.
sure. Yeah. Yeah, and we talked about that, maybe just that I'm glad that you have taken the simplifying thing to heart. And it can be tempting to try to get back to all the things you used to do before having kids. It can be tempting to try and get that back a little too early. And it just, don't ever underestimate how much a baby and a child will change your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I think it was kind of like maybe a little too early because, we see other people who are maybe doing it, but maybe they have way more support, or maybe they have less sensitive, more, chill child. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, there's a lot of different circumstances that I think
Yeah.
we can't.
Or maybe they're, I think those are two really real possibilities. And also they might be showing up for their kid in a different way than you are.
Yeah,
So, and a big difference that sounds like from this time talking to you to last time is you sound way more empowered.
that's good.
Like you sound like you feel more empowered, and that you're like making choices instead of feeling like the choices are being made for you.
Yeah. I think it's like this, I don't know, it's like the expectations. I think I felt like, you know, I know what I believe in and I follow people and learn from people like you. And like, I felt like if I, wanted to like live up to my beliefs, like I had to do all these certain things kind of thing, but it's
Mhm.
more just like, I don't have to be perfect about it,
Mhm.
I don't have to never give a bottle. I don't have to never give her a pacifier. I don't have to do those types of things. Like I can still, yeah, I can still make the choice, like you said, each day. And some days, like, it has meant that she's more whiny, or I'm giving her less attention than I usually would to make my dinner that day, but it's not every day. And
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and we also have to remember that if you're miserable, it's hard to be a good mom.
Yeah, I know. And it feels like you have to just kind of focus on your kid instead of anything that you need, but it has to
Yeah.
be a little bit of a balance.
There's so much martyrdom in like I don't know, like the cult of motherhood, right? And I think obviously we do have to give up a lot to be the kind of parents that we want to be, and awake in the night and maybe not doing some of the things that you want to do. And there's also room for us to take care of ourselves. And sometimes we need to put ourselves first to be, to take care of ourselves so that we can show up for our kid in the way we want to show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one more thing, which is definitely like not going to change overnight, just like the perfectionist thing, but I've been trying to catch myself like thinking about my emotions, like identifying less with it. Because I think before I would be like, I'm so overwhelmed, like I am overwhelmed, and being like, this is me and it's all consuming, versus being like, this moment is overwhelming. Like,
Right.
I'm not a part of, I'm that's not everything about me right now. This is this specific moment in time,
Yeah.
and I can handle it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's there's a tool. I think it's Tara Brock who has this tool called the RAIN tool. And it's for when you're feeling overwhelmed. And so I think so RAIN is the acronym. So you like recognize the feeling that you're having. I'm not going to remember exactly what each one is. It's like recognize the feeling, acknowledge it, investigate it. And then the N is exactly what you're talking about, which is not identify with it, which just means recognizing this is a moment in time. And I haven't always felt this way, and I'm not always going to feel this way, but I'm just feeling this way right now, and it will pass.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
that N of the RAIN tool.
Yeah, it's helpful. And I think when I'm telling myself I'm so overwhelmed, just repeating that to myself or constantly noticing it, it's hard to like step out of it. But
Mm-hmm.
if I can just be like, this is what's happening in this moment or in this, hour, like it's okay.
Yeah. I used to tell myself, I remember this feeling of like coming back from the dog walk and like on the way home, everything that I need to do sort of started to coming crashing
Yeah.
down on me. And I remember having a mantra that I would say to counteract that, which is there's enough time for everything. Because there always does end up being enough time for everything. So instead of like, oh my God, I have so much to do, which is where my thoughts would go, I would go to there's enough time for everything. And that did help.
Yeah. Yeah. Those mantras can be helpful. I like
Hmm.
that one. Yeah.
Well, thanks for updating us. Was there anything else that you wanted to ask me about or share?
Oh, I wrote down one more thing. The regulating things together. I think you talked about maybe doing things that could be regulating for both of us. Like you suggested maybe taking a bath or something. So I thought about it and I was like, I just don't know. Nothing, she's not a chill girl. She's not going to want to take a bath with me. She's not going to want to do any of those things that I like to do. And I really like tried to just make things like reduce the noise in the evening. So the last thing I wanted to do was like add to the noise, but I tried putting on music and it like really, really helped. Like I
Oh,
think
good.
I think assuming she listens to music a lot more in daycare than she does here. She seemed like she recognized some of the songs that I certainly hadn't played for her before. And she's just kind of like dancing around and moving and it was a good realization to be like I didn't want to try that and add to the noise, but then it ended up working out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. Did you try earplugs? That was something we talked about, right?
Yeah, I got because I had earplugs before, but they were sort of like the noise canceling ones. So I got the ones that just reduce the noise, and I haven't had them for that long, but I've used them a couple of times, and it's been helpful.
Good.
Yeah,
Good. Well, keep those in your pocket for when
yeah,
you're starting to feel overwhelmed and just pop
yeah.
them in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad that you feel like you have some tools and sort of a mindset for a way forward. I think that's great.
Yeah. Thanks so much for your help.
You're welcome. And we'll see you in the membership.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.